future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Wait, is this camera facing me?
Greetings and salutations, everyone. You have tuned into Dr. Judy WTF, which is What the Freud, and our audience is growing by leaps and bounds, and we very much appreciate that. I'm your host, Walt Lusk, and you've tuned into UBN Radio, and we are having a fantastic topic today, which is our part 2 of our series on cancer from the Caregiver series, and we're going to have a call-in in a few minutes, but we're going to touch on that, and we're going to shrink a song. Again, we're going to do a David Bowie song, probably one of his most favorite and popular ones. This is sponsored by the Psychological Healing Center, which has been founded by none other than the amazing, world-renowned, and world-famous author, Dr. Judy Rosenberg, who's, of course, here in studio. If you can hear our voice, you can have therapy from Dr. Judy and her therapists from the Psychological Healing Center. It doesn't matter whether it's on the phone, on Skype, or actually in person. And actually people from all over the United States and all over the world, actually, mostly Europe, have benefited from Dr. Judy. And we get a lot of comments now on YouTube, and we really, really appreciate that. And you can catch us on Stitcher and iTunes as well. And if you want to get on the couch with Dr. Judy, you sure can. All you do is call in here in the United States. Area code 323-843-2826 is our number.
And an appreciation to everyone listening and to all the people who have signed up for the Mind Map Therapy. It's a 10-session psychoeducational therapeutic course that takes you from the problem through the process to the solution and dismantles the old encoding and paradigm shifts you out. And as we've been talking a lot about, the book is out, Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect. There it is
definitely out. It's on Amazon, and is it up in Kindle? On Kindle,
yeah.
And is it on Nook and Barnes and Noble yet?
No, but it's available through my website.
Okay, and the book is in paperback. It's a great read, and I know a lot of people have been benefiting tremendously. It's I think it's your best work thus far.
Thank you very much. It only took 14 years from inception to manifestation of this one. So tonight we're doing a part 2 series on the effects of cancer, cancer's effects on family members, because it's not only the person who is diagnosed with cancer that suffers, it's also the family, significant others around the person who suffer a great deal. And so we're going to delve into that. We have a special guest that's going to call in, and by all means, you're welcome to do call-ins as well. And last time we had a guest on.
Coco.
Yes, Coco was on. Coco Ackham. She was on, and she was discussing her experience of family members suffering from cancer. And so there are definite psychological ramifications of cancer, not to mention the fear and the uncertainty. There's a sense of hopelessness for some. For many, they experience the 5 stages of dying, just like Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross speaks of. Mm-hmm. The denial, no, I don't have cancer, and then the anger, angry at God, angry at themselves for not taking better care of themselves, and then finally into an acceptance stage. And some people don't accept, they fight to the end. Yeah. So I'm really interested to know how Cindy, our call-ins family, handled her diagnosis and what it triggered off in each individual. Because basically, Walt, we speak about this a lot, that our negative core beliefs rule us.
Yes.
And so when we're damaged on a causal level, when we're wounded, what happens is that we get a reaction to the wound, and then we encode that wound into the fiber of our being, which is why the cover of the book has the DNA strand, because the purpose of therapy is to decode the past and recode the future so that we can paradigm shift out.
It sounds really complicated, and it is, but Dr. Judy is brilliant at breaking it down into very simple, manageable, bite-sized pieces, and it's easier and quicker than you think if you've done therapy with others. We're not trying to be negative on other therapy, but the response has just been phenomenally positive. She has other therapists as well on a sliding scale, so that are obviously being trained and are trained in the mind map system. And if you want to go to Dr. Judy WTF, which of course is What the Freud, drjudywtf.com, and you can see the mind map, which is a 9-panel system, and that's basically the roadmap that we go on. And to go through it is really, really efficient, and a lot of people really in a very short time. And we're talking months, a couple, 3 months. And I can say that because I'm a therapist. See a very marketable and noticeable difference. And Dr. Judy is calling me all the time with testimonials of a patient that came in that had big challenges, whatever it may be, in a pretty short order. They are really not only doing better, but as the book talks about, think like a shrink. Thereby, you be able to handle things and life on your own, which is really, really important. I mean, no man is an island and no woman's an island, but you know what? And we can't do it ourselves. But to deal with just the stuff that slams us, if we can do it a little bit on our own, it's going to make our life a lot much better.
And cancer is a big slam.
It is a huge slam. I had a patient.
One of the words you don't want to hear. A diagnosis you just don't want to
I had a client that said the husband was talking about his wife. She has cancer, but cancer doesn't have her.
And I love that statement.
It's a very positive perspective.
Why we're going to be shrinking the tune by David Bowie, Let's Dance.
Let's Dance.
Because in essence, we've got to celebrate life. My father passed away from pancreatic cancer, and people would come up to him and say, "Oh, Les, I'm so sorry you're dying." And he'd say to them, "Well, we're all dying. It's just that I happen to have some better idea of when my time is up." So yes, we're all dying, and yes, we're all living, and the light always pulls us toward Let's Dance. Because if it didn't, we just not want to continue on, especially when life challenges us to that degree.
I agree. And before sending calls, I want to touch on really quick what is a caregiver and whatnot. Dr. Judy's kind of alluded to it. But, life changes when a person is told those 3 words: you have cancer. But the patient is not the only one affected. Life changes for those who care and love a person with cancer. Right. It's really one of the few illnesses that not only impacts, obviously, the person with it, but those around. Also, life changes for the person who will help get them through it, which, of course, is the caregiver. There are many types of caregiving, and a lot of them are unpaid, which are family members and friends and stuff. And it's crucial that, the caregiver takes care of themselves, which we're going to talk about as well.
Right. And one of the aspects of the system that we allude to a lot is that when you are a nurturer, you have to be nurtured. And when you're a caregiver, you're a nurturer, and so you have to be nurtured, because obviously the person with cancer is going to be needing a lot more. And so for those people out there who have family members, it's super important that you get the energy from other sources.
It's really more important today than ever, and one of the reasons is because patients that have cancer and the treatments they receive are spending far less time in the hospital, which means that somebody else has to care for them. And the sicker people sometimes are cared for at home, because once they have chemotherapy or they've done what they've done, there's really nothing the hospital can do, and time is really the only thing that can assist as they respond to the medications and such. Right. So it's even a bigger demand today than it ever has been, because of the fact that more patients that have cancer and are being treated are not totally treated in the hospital as they once were.
And I'm curious to know what Cindy's experience with hospice is, or if she has experience with that, because a lot of people choose to die at home, and how fortunate for them if their families allow for home care so that they can be surrounded by the unconditional love of their family.
And there's good and bad about being a caregiver, what hopefully we get a chance to talk about. You may find that it enriches your life, a deep sense of satisfaction, confidence, and accomplishment for caring somebody. You also learn inner strengths and abilities that you didn't know you had, and maybe you end up with a greater purpose of, and a sense of purpose for your own life.
And we all have to face our death. So when we're watching somebody die or faced with their death, not even necessarily them dying, then we confront our own fear of death. And I know for some, it takes them deeper into a spiritual journey. For others, they just don't want to talk about it. That's the denial, of course. And I think it's very individual insofar as whether somebody will choose to want to know what's going on with them or not want to know. I think that is just fair that people choose. Well, do you want to know what's going on with you? No, don't tell me. Just leave me alone. And when I go, and so be it. I don't want to. I don't want to think about it.
The League of Stuff talks about the fact that it's different with everybody, and just because they don't want to talk about it, you can't take it personally. We're going to hopefully touch on taking care of somebody with cancer or addressing and dealing with it as a coworker, because a lot of people obviously with it, they want to be productive and they want to still work and they have to work. But and as you've mentioned, some of the frustrations are the fact that it can be very frustrating and painful, and notice their own feelings of severe sadness and emotional distress, physical symptoms like tiredness and trouble sleeping, and you might want to get support. So the caregiver needs support, after, as you've mentioned, to nurture the nurturer.
And then there's so many layers of this because there are all alternative treatments, and then there are traditional treatments, and then there's the macrobiotic diet, which my father was on, that I insisted that he be on. It was the skinniest time of my life because I went on the diet with him. So the anti-inflammatory, the anti-cancer, the pH negative diet, which takes away the acidity of the blood. I mean, there are just so many different solutions that people reach to. And then I know people who go out of the country and have shamans working on them and pulling out dis-ease from their body. And so the list is endless insofar as the treatments people seek, whether they be holistic or traditional. So, I really would love to, of course, hear from Cindy, who we're going to hear
She's going to
from
call in just a couple minutes.
Very soon.
And as I mentioned in the last show, not that I'm a proponent of it, but, if you have cancer and nobody has cancer and you really want to know all about it, there really are more non-traditional treatments that are out there, as Judy's mentioned, overseas, out of the country, United States. And a great source for that just came out in October is called, you can Google it, The Truth About Cancer.
Thank you for that.
12-point series. I don't know, it was by a guy named Ty Bollinger, who's very well respected, and he went all over the world looking for alternatives because, unfortunately, I hate to tell you this, folks, the FDA is not the be-all, end-all.
Right, and the FDA is, after all, going to back money-making big businesses.
Well, the middle word of that is drug.
And the big farm, right? And
so
not all solutions are centered around the solutions that the big pharmacological companies present us with. So we have to be our own advocates, and we have to use our intelligence, our intuition, and do our research and go out of the box with what other alternative medicines have to offer.
That we do. I thought maybe I'd start real quick so we hit it is, there's 16 tips, and we'll get through these and see when we get interrupted, about caregiving, because it's a big, big job, and there's a lot of moving parts because you've got to manage your life and maybe somebody else's, and maybe you're working, and, it's like, oh my goodness gracious, all of a sudden the stress level could just go through the roof. But you have to remember, first of all, it's a team effort. Friends, family, professionals, and everybody has their place and their different strengths and their different things they can do. And remember that we've mentioned already that if you need support, there are ways for you to get support, because you can't do it yourself. And obviously, the person that has the illness, the cancer, they can't either. So it's really a team effort. Secondly is, sometimes to relieve the stress, it helps to create a list, right? What have I got to do? Well, if you create a list of stuff and then you can manage the sort of the friends, the family, professionals, and the caregivers of who's doing what, that may help you relieve the stress and keep track of things if you're kind of I'll call it the quarterback of taking care of the patient. Third is you got to be proactive, meaning, you got to prevent last-minute emergencies, whatever that might be, and have more of a sense of control and order, because many times, the patient can't. And you need time away without feeling guilty and concerned.
That's
you
a big
need
one.
to take a big break.
Because people do feel guilty and concerned.
Yes, they do.
Because especially if you have a little bit more of a codependent quality, right? When people just naturally live to give and naturally get a lot of pleasure for it, then they have to be really careful with their boundaries so that they don't bleed out, so to speak, emotionally.
Or be vampired.
Or be vampired.
As
Because
we talked
cancer
about.
is like a vampire. It eats away at the fiber of your health. And so everyone around that person is going to feel the sadness and the responsibility for kicking in and being of support.
Be a problem solver, which is, of course, easier than said than done. But, identify problems, be proactive, as I like to say. Find out, what's needed to do, follow through. And again, do not be afraid to seek advice. There's people very involved.
Right.
But again, you want to be positive, a positive attitude. And we're not trying to be syrupy or sick or, fake. But, it can help and spill over into the person that's going through it. But again, boundaries. You have to know yourself, right? Your strengths as well as your weaknesses, and exercise some independence in that. 7 is, again, consider professional volunteer services. So again, find out American Cancer Society is a great resource.
Thank you
for
that.
stuff, for support.
Right.
But communication is vital, number 8. And most important job is to communicate openly, not only with the person who has cancer, but also those around, and provide assurance that he or she will be the central part of any and all discussions that and decisions that are made. So with that, and without further ado, hey, Cindy, can you hear us? Hello?
Okay, I guess she'll call back.
She's on.
Is she on?
No,
Okay.
can't hear us. I'll have to have her call back.
Okay. She'll call back.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll see how that works.
Okay.
So you have to be communicative. Also, again, accept limitations of the person who is ill. Sometimes, if they've just received chemotherapy, they may not be able to taste that meal that you've just worked so diligently on because they don't have any taste buds, or they're not hungry, or the pain medication, they may not notice the small things that you do, meaning they're going through a whole lot as well.
So there's not sometimes a lot of feeling of reward for the caretaker. Yeah.
Hey, Cindy, can you hear us now? Okay, you know what? I think we're going to have some technical difficulties. Let me see if we can get this resolved.
Okay.
So you can chat for us a sec.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so there's just a lot of burden on the person. There's also a lot of reward for people who do take care of their family members. It's just a matter of balance. So for those of you who are caretakers, then understand that you're going to be faced with a lot of moodiness. Some people are going to shut down as a result of it. So let's remember panel number 5, defense mechanisms. There are all kinds of defense mechanisms. How are we doing with the technical?
I think we got it resolved.
Oh,
Let's see.
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Hey, Cindy.
Hello.
Oh, there we go.
Hi.
Sorry,
How are
so
you?
sorry for the technical difficulties here. So, welcome.
I
Welcome.
apologize.
No, it was on our end.
Okay, well, hopefully it's all good. And thank you so much for having me. What can I tell you?
Well, I want to know a little bit about what you went through, and as a result of what you went through, what your family members went through, and how it was for just the whole dynamics of it. You, everyone involved. So I don't know very much about you, and I just know that you had cancer, and so. Just tell me a little bit, if you don't mind, if it's okay with you, what kind of cancer did you have? Is it in remission now? Just update me a little bit.
Okay, well, I'll try to hit the highlight so
Sure.
it doesn't get bogged down.
Okay.
I was originally diagnosed with breast cancer when I was 37. And I had been a professional athlete, so I didn't have I wasn't overweight, I didn't smoke, I didn't drink, and so I was very, very shocked. No family history that we were aware of. And this was about a little over 20 years ago. And they treated me very aggressively. So I was very sick and lost my hair and lost everything and lost all my muscles and what have you. And then, the treatment initially was very successful, and I came back from it.
Was that chemotherapy? Was it radiation?
I had chemotherapy for about a year.
Okay.
I had 2 months of radiation, and I had a number of surgeries.
Okay.
I was trying to hang on to my own breast, so I had them take as many lumps as they wanted to. As opposed to just having a
mastectomy.
a broad mastectomy. So I think I'm pretty confident I made the absolute right decision in that regard. It was really interesting because I was really young and I didn't have any perceptible risk factors, except for I didn't have a full-term pregnancy before the age of 20. I thought that was a good thing, but I guess maybe not.
Well, wow, that has an impact. That's interesting.
I think breastfeeding, right, reduces the chances of...
I think what the theory is that because the cells in your breast get turned over with estrogen, so many times before you actually have a baby, it's a little bit easier for something to mutate. But if you interrupt that whole cycle with a pregnancy or breastfeeding, then, you have kind of a reset button.
I see.
I don't know if that's factual, but that's what I have been told.
Okay.
But in any case, so I had, the treatment was really, really hard on me. But one of the really interesting factors in terms of how it affected my family was my father had been in liver cancer research. And he was a pure academic physician. He was at the University of California at San Francisco, and he was head of the department. And ironically, he was diagnosed with liver cancer and died very quickly after his diagnosis, which put our entire family into complete shock.
Sure.
So you were diagnosed with cancer, and your father, in the meantime...
my father had died several years beforehand.
I see.
It was one of those things where you just knew something was wrong, and 4 months later, unfortunately, we had lost him. And so the whole family was kind of, I think, in a state of kind of shock because it came out of the blue. He died very quickly. It was his own area of research, and so. Once we, got through that, everyone kind of just figured, okay, well, that was just very anomalous. And then about 7 years later is when I was diagnosed. And it was, again, incredibly shocking because it didn't seem to be connected to anything. It was like a comet,
It's just out of the blue.
Across the sky.
And it's not like you lived in a high radiation zone or anything like that. Did you look into that?
My oncologist said maybe they sprayed the field where I was playing when I was in elementary school with DDT, but, there's no footprint, there's no fingerprint to know what was the causative factor. And so it's really hard. You want to blame something, and you can't.
Yeah.
And, I remember at one point I was in a waiting room waiting to get some radiation treatment, and my skin was green and I didn't have any hair. And this guy said to me, well, you want to know why you have cancer? And I'm like, yeah. Did the Nobel Prize Committee miss you? And he said, well, it's because you drank milk as a child. And I was like, well, that's really not very helpful because everyone drank milk as a child. So, I'm just using that as an illustration, is that, people are afraid and they want to know what will save them and protect them. And so, well, if you did something differently than I did, then okay, that could be material. But so what happened with my dad, and it happened with me, and unfortunately, my mother just could not handle it.
So what was the time frame? So your father died when you were how old?
My father died when I was 30.
Okay, and then the cancer at 37?
And I was diagnosed when I was 37.
Okay.
And so, it was some time had passed, but, it's still not the huge amount of time had passed. And as I started to say, my mother just couldn't deal. She said she knew I would be fine, and she went to France for 6 months.
Wow.
She just bailed out of the country.
Wow.
Oh, my goodness.
That's one reaction.
Bailed out of the country.
Yeah.
That's one way to relieve stress.
Right.
And, for her.
For her, right.
Yeah.
So
so that had repercussions not only on me, but
Sure.
on my siblings. Especially, I have 2 sisters that are both younger than me, and my mother would be in touch with them, and they say, oh, she's doing okay, or what have you. But subsequently, I asked my mom, I'm like, how could you have left me? This is the scariest thing that has ever happened to me in my entire life.
Yeah.
And she said, I was too afraid to be there. I just couldn't be there.
So she abandoned you.
Well, yeah, she did abandon me.
Yeah.
And, part of and all of our family is dealing with this, is seeing, she's my mom. Of course, I love her, and I don't want her to be afraid, but I really needed her.
Sure.
And she couldn't really help me. And so both of my sisters stepped up as much as they could. There was a couple times where I'm like, I'm not going back to chemo. I hate it. And my sister said, well, if you had any hair, I'd drag you by it, but you're just going to have to get in the car and go with me.
Oh, wow. Okay. So speaking of your mother's reaction to your cancer, I guess she was all energied out from the experience with your father. What then happened in between you and your mother in terms of your relationship? Were you able to just say, my mom can't handle it, or what happened there? Did you hold a huge grudge toward her about that?
It's not so much of a huge grudge. As I'm listening to your question, I think my response is, as I have grown up, there's sort of a continuum of awareness that my mom could be the kind of mom that I wanted her to be, And I remember at the time that I got sick, I had another friend whose name was Cindy who got sick at the exact same time as I did. And her mom was the exact opposite.
Wow.
She said, if my mom doesn't show up every day with a casserole, I'm like, can we switch moms for a few months? I'll take a casserole. And she says, and I'll take a break. So it's kind of like the hair situation. You're never really happy, right?
Yeah.
But so was I massively disappointed in my mother? Absolutely. Was I really shocked, if I'm to be honest with you? Not really. My mom has
go ahead.
Really not been there. This was just a it really crystallized that I had to change what I was looking for from my mom.
You know, it's very interesting because I talk a lot about the cause. I talk a lot about attachment theory, as you noticed my mind map, and the whole structure of the importance of having a healthy first few years of life, which includes all the elements that make for a healthy human psyche, which is, in an ideal world, breastfeeding, stay-at-home mom, nurturing mom, mom who puts infant before herself, a mom who attunes to her child and soothes her child, a father who's emotionally present, and the general sense of safety and no emotional abuse and sexual abuse and physical abuse or smothering. I think I've covered a lot of it.
Yeah.
That's what makes for a healthy human psyche. But how many people do you know get that, right? So,
very few.
right. So with that said, I'm really interested to know what kind of a mother she was, because in essence, she's still the same person. She still has the same core. So tell me about...
Absolutely. One of the things that I personally get very frustrated in terms of my relationship with my mother is she cannot let me be afraid. She has to minimize and trivialize any fear that I have.
I see.
Because she can't take that in.
Would that be also anxiety?
I had to go in. I'm sorry?
Would that also be anxiety?
Oh, yeah. I mean... oh dear, you'll be fine. And I'm like, Mom, I'm really scared about this. And you're fine. And when I had said to her, how could you have left me, Mom, when I needed you so badly? And she said, you've always been the strongest one in the family, dear. I never worry about you.
So let me just ask you, what kind of a mother was she during the first few years of life? So if I've now rattled off all the ingredients it takes to form a healthy human psyche, what part of those ingredients did you get emotionally and what parts didn't you get? Was she a stay-at-home mom? Did she breastfeed you? Did she put you before her? What was that like?
I'm fairly certain, I'm almost positive she breastfed me. She did stay at home. My mother got pregnant with me right after she got married to my father, who was in medical school at the time. And she and everyone in the family was very appalled that she was pregnant. And she said that she, felt that my coming along really interrupted some of the things that she wanted to do. And unfortunately, I had 4 other siblings very quickly after me. And so when you were rattling off all of those qualities of a healthy human psyche, I'm like, oh my God, I should get off this phone call. I don't have any of them.
Well,
no, stay on.
Newsflash, Cindy, newsflash, neither does the human race, okay, which is why we're in trouble, okay?
But, my mother was pretty much the way she is now, the way she was then. I got my first babysitting job when I was 4. The minute I turned 16, she said, if the state of Washington says you can drive the carpool.
Wait. Back up. You got your first babysitting job?
How do
you were 4?
How does that occur?
Go ahead. I want to hear this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
We lived in, my father was in the Navy, and he was gone all the time on these long 9-month Westpac, naval trips. And my mom really had been an only child, and suddenly she had 3 babies, and she was alone. And so she would say, here, I'll pay you. And she would have me and my 2 siblings and the neighbor's kid, and she would leave me with the kids, and she would go to the grocery store.
At age 4.
So there it is. Okay.
I was really proud of myself. Hey, you guys, I was really proud of myself that she put so much responsibility in my hands when I was so little.
And what happened to your childhood? Aren't you supposed to be a child at age 4? You see, so you forgot that part.
I don't want to throw my mom under the bus. She had some, she did the best she could. But was she the warm, nurturing, I'll do anything for you, don't forget your coat kind of mom? No, she was not that kind of mom.
Okay. And you bring up go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I was going to say my father got a sabbatical, and we lived in Stockholm, Sweden, when I was 10. And my parents decided that I was going to go to the Swedish school, and I was going to learn Swedish, and I was going to go to an urban school by myself. So they're just like, be careful on the crosswalk. So they've always sort of, put me out there, and I interpret it as, they have faith in me and they have trust in me.
Okay.
And I always thought it was a good thing until I got into trouble, AKA having cancer, and realized this was a little bit more than watching some kids.
Yeah, well,
man.
I want to go back to throwing our parents under the bus, because that's just something I commonly am faced with as a psychologist, because a lot of mothers don't want to be blamed, shamed, or criticized or judged. So what I really want to point out is that this is multi-generational. Okay, so if your mother is not a nurturer, that's probably because your grandmother, your grandfather were not nurturers either. So this just goes on and on and on. So this is not a blame, shame, throw mommy under the bus kind of a thinking. What it is I teach a causal model so that we can begin to connect the dots. Oh, that makes sense that your mother couldn't handle your cancer, because for whatever her injuries were, she wasn't able to be a giver. Okay, so when you connect all of those dots, you can see things like she was an only child, your father wasn't able to nurture the nurturer, she had a bunch of kids, so she didn't have a lot to give, so she just felt that she needed to bail and needed support of a 4-year-old in order to have a life. So it all makes very good sense, and at the same time, it doesn't feel very good to you either, does it? Obviously not. Okay.
No.
So this is where we have to really understand that the people around us are going to be activated in their negative core beliefs by the cancer, by the circumstances. They're going to become more prominently who they are in terms of their personalities. So the nurturers are going to become more nurturing, and the people who are more centered around themselves are going to become even more centered around themselves. So it's very interesting. It's almost like a Rorschach test in a way. You throw somebody something at somebody, and what do you get? You get everybody appearing in the form that sometimes it brings out the worst of their worst, and sometimes it brings out the best of their best. So it's just really interesting to see how people show up. Now, what about your sisters? They showed up, didn't they?
They showed up. They did. And I know that my sisters and I share similar feelings about my mother's inability to really be there for any of us.
Yes.
And so, everything that you just said makes so much sense. I have this whole little stream of Christmas lights going off in my head as I'm listening to you. Yeah. Because I think everything that you said is absolutely true in my experience. Her mother was not a nurturer of her, and when my mom gets into a place that's uncomfortable, she goes more purely to herself. I think you said negative core emotions.
Yeah.
And then around her, all of us are ultimate nurturers, I think, in a reactionary fashion.
Absolutely. Because if her defense...
fill in the gap.
Yeah, because if her defense mechanism is to get out and just, isolate herself, then it makes sense that your reaction to the wound is to over-nurture. I have a case as we speak of a mother who over-nurtured her daughter to the point where her daughter is now so self-centered, unfortunately, and she's on a very, very destructive path, and it's super hard for the mother to just pull back and let the system collapse, so to speak, so that the daughter can finally get some help and balance the system back to where it needed to be in the first place. But this is what happens, is that because of our wounds from our childhood, we have reactions, and then we have defenses, and these defenses we take personally. So obviously you know that what your mother was doing had very little to do with you, right? I mean, literally and figuratively.
Well, the evolution of my awareness is yes.
Right.
I didn't understand that a while ago, but I am understanding it better every day.
Okay, and so it's never personal. However, that doesn't mean that it doesn't personally hurt. Okay, so it's a distinction. So I can share with you this. I remember when I had a lump under my arm, and the doctor said that we must take that lump out immediately and see if it's Hodgkin's disease. I was all of 21 years old, and I was planning my death. And I asked the doctor, how long do I have? He goes, oh, you have a few years. You have maybe, a few years to live. And I thought, oh, well, he said that too cheerily. And I thought, a few years to live? I'm, like 21 years old. So I went home and I said to my mother, hey, Mom, I have to go get this biopsy. It's got to be done on Friday. And her reply was, oh, I'm so sorry. I have plans with your dad to go to Palm Springs. Okay.
I'm sorry to laugh, but I can
No, be my guest.
Okay, and that was so sad. And I loved my mother, and she's deceased now. And I loved her, and it didn't quite click in my head. All I knew was that didn't seem right, but I think it took a lot of years for that coin to click in my head that really was not right, and to start looking at, my angry feelings about that.
Well, life happens while you're making other plans,
right.
Dr. Judy.
Well, yeah, she had to be in Palm Springs with my dad. Okay, now my reaction to that, because I have children, is over my dead body. Okay, so sometimes people do the reaction on the the other end of it. So you have more empathy. You can see how that just wouldn't work for your life. Your sisters were able to see that withdrawing from you would be just like unconscionable. And so you're just seeing how everyone's showing up in this particular process, which is really, really interesting.
It is really interesting, and I think no man is an island, no woman is an island, and no diagnosis is for a single person. It always affects the family, but it also affects the network outside of the family.
Absolutely,
and how
it does.
things are perceived.
Right.
And so I know my sisters, and I also have two brothers, are so amazingly caring of their children, but of other people's children.
And other people's children, or of their own children as well?
Of their own children as well. My sisters and both of my brothers are, incredibly involved parents, and they show up for all the recitals and the kids' plays and all of those kinds of things. And they also, take care of, I think they're aware of other children that don't have quite the
nurturing,
committed parenting, and so they oh, I've got such and such over, she's just staying over at the house because her mom's never home.
So they've developed the empathy, so that's where they took that. They took it from, instead of blueprinting directly off of it, they compensated for it. I know that we're shortly out of time. How much time do we have, Walt?
About 3 minutes before we have to do our song.
Okay, so so I just wanted to ask you a couple of things. How's your health today, Cindy?
I am awesome today. Thank you so much.
That's so great.
If the moonshine don't kill me, I'll live till I die.
Okay, and how's your relationship with your mother?
It's very cordial. Very cordial, but
okay.
I protect myself. I do not discuss anything that means anything deep to me with her, because I can't have her abandon me again. So
boundaries are very, very important. So good for you. Boundaries are very important. Oh yeah, good for you.
And then what I wanted to ask you, what do you do with the feelings of the anger and the hurt and that? Are you able to share that with your sisters and your brother and other people in your life, so that you're not holding that energy and having that be destructive?
Listen, everybody knows about my mom.
Okay. So you have other people who can see. They can be witness to this pain that.
Well, I have one last little thing to tell you, because I know we're running out of time. I met a woman who is a little bit younger than me, who got sick at the same time as me, who has the same kind of mother. And she and I have now developed this, okay, if I'm hurt or she's hurt, that she and I go to one another, because we had this very parallel experience with very parallel mothers. So we've created a mother substitute for each other.
I love it.
So you've got each other's back. That's cool.
So just a couple of things I wanted to say is that we have to choose who we share our pain with, because if we don't have a person who can offer us some level of unconditional love and regard and empathy, then it can really damage us, because the most healing force on the planet, as we all know, is unconditional love. And who do we want that most from? Of course, is our mother, of course. Okay, so I really appreciate you sharing this. I know that it's a delicate situation when we talk about mothers and what they don't give. And again, reminding everyone who is listening is that we can't give what we don't get. Okay, so somewhere in there, Cindy, you must have gotten something, because you're able to give. You're able to give to other people. You're able to give to this other person who you nurtured as she nurtured you, that lady that you became friends with.
Oh, yeah.
And your sisters, and you're able to give. So I really appreciate you sharing your life with us as part of your life.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it a lot.
And we're going to celebrate with
we're going to shrink a song called Let's Dance by David Bowie, who, of course, died of cancer last week.
Yes.
Liver cancer.
Yes.
Listen, for you, thank you so much for letting me say all this out loud. And to anybody who's listening, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you can get through it. And sometimes the revelations really help you, in a surprising fashion later on.
Yes,
so,
it does.
yes, my mom was really great to me in many ways, because I couldn't be who I am without that. It was just, I think the cancer thing, like you said, hit all the wrong buttons for her.
The wrong buttons, right. Thank you very, very much,
Thanks,
Cindy.
Thanks for calling.
Thank
being
you.
a part.
Thank
God
you
bless.
for having me. All right,
My
bye-bye.
pleasure. Bye-bye.
Well, again, that's the power and the testimony, I believe, of the mind map system and what Dr. Judy does. I mean, a 30-minute phone call addressed a lot of the issues and challenges that she's probably faced all her life, in addition, of course, cancer.
Yeah.
Which is no picnic.
Yeah.
We've got, folks, if you want notes on, for example, what to say or not to say, or what to do with a coworker, or if you're a long-distance caregiver, I've got some support material. You're more than welcome to write us, and it's info@drjudywtf.com, and I'd be happy to forward it to you that we didn't get a chance to go through.
You mean what to do or not to do if your loved one has cancer?
Primarily, specifically, a coworker.
Oh, if a coworker has
Coworker.
cancer. Interesting. Okay.
There's a lot of issues that obviously can be stirred up with that, and a lot of challenges, which I thought we were going to touch on.
We'll share it. Just drop us your email, and
we'll get that right back to you.
Okay.
So we're going to shrink our song. And, of course, it's Let's Dance by the infamous David Bowie, which this particular song was the one that pretty much started his career way back. So I'm going to read the lyrics, and then Dr. Judy is going to interpret the song. Let's dance, put on your red shoes, and dance the blues. Let's dance to the song they're playing on the radio. Let's sway, white color lights up your face. Let's sway through the crowd to an empty space.
I love the way that he juxtaposes the red shoes and dancing and the blues, because really, if we're interpreting this theme of cancer, we're looking at the blues, which is a cancer, and the red shoes, which is something fun and party-like, right?
Yes.
And so I think there's a sense of we've got to accept what is in life, and we have to just, whether it's beautiful or not, there's beauty in it, and so let's celebrate.
If you say run, I'll run with you. If you say hide, we'll hide, because my love for you would break my heart in two if you should fall into my arms and tremble like a flower.
So this is somebody that's really on the person's team. They'll run, they'll hide, they'll be by their side, and there's a sense of a oneness in the, they don't want to break the heart in two. They want to remain one. Because there's empathy. If you should fall into my arms, You should fall into my arms and tremble like a flower. They're there to be vulnerable. So this is what we want. We want somebody in our life that's going to be able to hold us when we're trembling.
It reminds me of the cliche phrase that shared joy is double joy, and shared sorrow is half sorrow.
Yes, and that's exactly speaking to this. Yeah.
Let's dance for fear. Your grace should fall. Let's dance for fear. Tonight is all. Let's sway. You could look into my eyes. Let's sway under the moonlight, this serious moonlight.
So the look into my eyes is that oneness again.
Connection.
No matter what's happening, let's interconnect. Let's have the eye-to-eye contact. Let's dance for fear. Your grace should fall. Let's dance for fear. Tonight is all. So it doesn't matter if we're dancing for fear or dancing for joy. We're dancing together.
Absolutely. And again, the chorus. If you say run, I'll run with you. If you say hide, we'll hide. Break my love for you would break my heart in two. If you should fall into my arms and tremble like a flower. Let's dance and put on your red shoes and dance away the blues. Let's dance to the song that's playing on the radio.
Yeah. So it's just the sense that we're together and we're going to dance. And even if it's blue, we're still going to make it beautiful. And we're going to dance to whatever emotion presents itself, whether it be joy or whether it be sadness. We're still going to share this moment together, this experience together.
Let's sway. You could look into my eyes. Let's sway under the moonlight, this serious moonlight.
Yeah, it's a serious topic.
It's
a serious moonlight, but as long as we're together, we can sway because we move together, we flow together. Beautiful words. I didn't know these words until I read them.
Yeah,
like
this
this.
is. I mean,
Read
this
them
is
like this.
put David Bowie on the map and got his amazing career started. And
Can see why.
that is our Shrink That Tune. If you have a tune you want us to shrink, or a topic you'd like to have us delve into, or some show notes, of course you can write us at info@drjudywtf.com. We can catch us on Stitcher and iTunes in terms of podcasts. We're still hoping for iHeartRadio.
Yeah.
If you have a challenge that you really need someone to talk to, you can obviously call Dr. Judy at the Psychological Healing Center. The numbers are at drjudywtf.com. She has a whole team, offices in Sherman Oaks and Beverly Hills. And, of course, if you can hear our voice via Skype or telephone, it works amazingly well, as you just witnessed here on the radio. And
Thank
get
you
her
for
book
that.
on Amazon, folks. If you really want to learn how to be the cause, healing human disconnect, and think like a shrink, it's available on Amazon, on Kindle, and, of course, on paperback. And you can go to Dr. Judy WTF, and it's linked there as well.
So this is our further tribute to David Bowie, who died of liver cancer, correct?
Just last week.
Just last week, and celebrating life.
So this has been Dr. Judy WTF. I'm your host, Walt Lesk, with Dr. Judy Rosenberg. Until next time, God bless everyone.